All right, and there it is up on your screen, the latest ABC News Washington Post presidential poll. On the Republican side, Donald Trump, 32%, Ben Carson, 22%, and then comes Marco Rubio at 11%, Ted Cruz at 8%, Jeb Bush 6%, Fiorina 4%, Huckabee 3%, Kasich 3%, Paul 3%, Christie 2%, Graham 1%, and Santorum 1%. And joining us now to talk about that and other polls, one-on-one matchups that have come out, and some of the states' polls that have come out. John Zogby, pollster with Zogby Polls and CEO of Zogby Analytics, and Kyle Kondik, managing editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball, University of Virginia Center for Politics, author of a forthcoming book due out in 2016, The Bellwether, Why Ohio Picks the President. Welcome to both of you. John, here we are. It's Thanksgiving. And nationally, in this poll anyway, and it's indicative, Donald Trump looks to be, at least at this point, unstoppable to me.
Too soon to use the word unstoppable, but unstopped, at least so far. And I think the horrible events in Paris have certainly assisted him because of that the tough talk, the trash talk, in some instances even the irresponsible talk. But he's got his base, and that seems to be defined, and he may have more staying power than I certainly thought that he would have.
And Kyle, I want to hear your take, but also to John's point, it's more than his base. If you look at his views on the Syrian immigrants, for instance, an overwhelming majority of Americans agree with him.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of Republicans and many Democrats, maybe they haven't been as strident about the Syrian refugee problem as Trump has been, but pretty clearly I think that politicians across the country recognize that Americans aren't particularly excited about bringing these refugees over. Trump looks particularly good right now, I think, in New Hampshire, where his kind of white working class coalition is working for him, and also where in New Hampshire it's a less evangelical state, and the party establishment in New Hampshire is particularly split. You've got John Kasich and Chris Christie and Jeb Bush all kind of pulling from each other, and they're not really pulling from Trump, who's unified that white vote. And so there's been a bunch of polls that came out over the weekend. A lot of them look pretty good.
And that you're referring. There's a CBS, and I want to get to the states. There's a CBS poll that has Trump at 32, Rubio at 13, and Cruz at 10. He's also doing well in South Carolina. But let's go to head-to-head matchups, and these are from Fox News polls. And we could start with the general election matchup between Trump and Hillary Clinton. Let's put up that one if we can. And there you see it, 46 to 41. In fact, almost every Republican of the top names beats Hillary, but 46 to 41. Are you surprised that at this stage it's a 5-point margin for Trump over Hillary? Kyle?
I think that I think it is surprising. Although I don't know if that's how it would shake out if the election were actually happening. The horse race polls for the general election at this point really aren't predictive, and they really won't become predictive until next summer. But Clinton certainly was doing better in these kinds of polls, a few months ago than she is now, for what it's worth.
And John, I'm glad you're back there. So let's talk about the head-to-head matchups that Kyle was just referring to. You got Trump over Clinton. In the first one, 46 to 41. Let's put up the next one. You got Carson over Clinton, 47 to 42, according to the Fox News poll. And let's go to the next one. Rubio does the best out of those three. He hits 50 to Clinton's 42. As Kyle indicated, Hillary was doing much better in those polls not too long ago. What's changed?
Well, clearly it's the trust factor, and it's also the factor when you look at the internals of all these polls that Hillary is not doing as well among millennials in particular as she needs to do. That millennial support is ultimately what defined the Obama election and re-election, remembering that the more millennials that come out to vote, because millennials are less than 60% white, that you're bringing out a lot of young African Americans Asians, and Hispanics. And so clearly, what these polls indicate right now is that Hillary, at least thus far, is not exciting those core elements of the base.
And let me ask you, Kyle, going back to the terrorism, Paris attacks, how much does Hillary saying, you know, we got to bring the Syrian refugees in, and no Muslims have anything to do with terror, which is what she said a few days back last week, have to do when you measure her up against not only Trump but Carson and Rubio in particular?
Yeah, I think that the Republicans right now are doing a little bit, or they're giving the people kind of what they want in terms of their positions on Syria. I think that it is important to remember, though, that the Paris attacks are fresh in our minds right now. Whether we'll be talking a lot about terrorism in the summer of next year, in the fall, I think that's kind of an open question.
All right, John, let me talk about, we talked about New Hampshire briefly. CBS poll has Trump 32, Rubio 13. South Carolina, CBS poll has Trump 35, Carson 19. So it's not only the national polls that he's doing well in, but it's it's state by state as well. And I don't know, even in Iowa, CBS poll where he was trailing Carson not too long ago, 30-19 over Carson.
You're seeing clearly a Carson fade, which was predictable. And in Iowa, at least, you're seeing a burst for Cruz. The bottom line is that Donald Trump is still, in commanding leads, really commanding leads in these first three states. And, Iowa is just about 9 weeks away from us now. And Trump has more legs than, frankly, I thought he would have.
Yeah, all right. So a final word from you, Kyle, from both of you. What is it going to take to defeat or to knock off Trump, do you think?
Well, what is interesting is that Carson is following the kind of predictable boom and bust that we saw from so many 2012 candidates. Trump is not, and I don't know how Republicans are going to fight against Trump. We're seeing the John Kasich super PAC going against Trump, kind of saying highlighting some of his kind of outlandish statements. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, it might actually help him.
And I don't think it's anything that Trump says or anything that's said against Trump. I think it's all a question right now of Trump getting bored, somehow maybe not getting enough attention at some point, or just deciding, hey, this isn't something I want to do. But thus far, he has really defied the conventional wisdom.
Kyle and John, thank you both very much. Really appreciate the great input. Thank you. Up next, folks, the Malzberg panel with Larry Elder and David Swerdlick. Lots to talk about. Don't go away.